Today I'm going to be breaking down the top 5 strategies here at Townhall 12 so you can 3-star any base. The first strategy we're going to be jumping in to take a look at is going to be super bowlers. Now this is a pretty simple strategy and a fairly easy one to execute, so let's jump straight into it. The siege of choice is going to be the flame flinger, which you will see in a second, but we're going to be coming in with a Grand Warden walk to kick things off. We're going to be using that rage vial on him. Of course, the higher level you've got that leveled up, the better it's going to be, but you can see we've got Brian down here and he's actually going to be coming in with a pretty low level one. And if we pause it up here for a second, what we're looking to do here is start to create a funnel. So we've got the Grand Warden going to be clearing out a couple of buildings with his walk. We're then going to have the Flame Flinger. Typically you're going to want to put this on a corner section and you want to make sure it's not going to be in range of any mortars or expos or buildings like that. So it's going to be able to pick off a couple of these defenses over on the right hand side. We're then going to have a Yeti over towards this top section just to take out 1 or 2 buildings, again helping with that funnel. So let's continue to see what we're doing here. Another Yeti going to be coming in down on this bottom section. You can see actually picking up a decent chunk of value there. Both the Yetis on either side picking up a couple of buildings. Grand Warden still able to snipe off a good chunk of this bottom right hand side. Flame Flinger doing its job, so we can just leave that to its own devices. And then you'll see if we pause it up right there, we have a pretty clear path coming in from this top section of the base. We're going to go straight into this multi-target inferno, and we want to make sure we are pulling over our Grand Warden and those healers. So we're actually going to bring in those super bowlers fairly close to him, but not so far away that he's not going to get pulled. They want to be close enough that he'll come over, and also they're still going to go in the right direction. Now the super bowlers are so strong at Townhall 12 because of that triple bounce value they're able to get. And that rage gem from the Grand Warden, of course with the Eternal Tome, are going to be used in fantastic combination here to get maximum value. Flame Flinger still on half HP over towards that right hand side, about to take down that Eagle Artillery. Here comes another one of our spells. We're going to see the jump spell giving us access into both of these centralized multi-target infernos, and we of course have that rage spell. Now the important thing with the rage spell is don't just put it on your super bowlers. We're also looking to pick up the value and get it on those healers as well, so they can keep those super bowlers alive throughout the core of the base. And you want to pop that Grand Warden ability when you notice you're picking up the most amount of DPS onto your troops, which in this case was when we saw both the multi-target infernos, a couple of heroes, and the clan castle troops. And pausing it up yet again, we're going to see the entire core of the base is open because we had the Earthquake boots on the king, and these Earthquake boots are only level 1, but because he was in the core of the base, they have ripped open everything. We now basically have access to every single compartment here on the rest of this base, and even though we're on 50%, it's pretty obvious to me that this is already going to be a 3-star. That Lava Hound in the clan castle not going to cause us any real problems. We might get a couple of troops locking onto it like the Queen, but right now we are looking really strong. We froze up that Town Hall. We still have a heal spell. We have a couple of Yetis which did come out of that Flame Flinger, and honestly this base is completely crushed. Those healers have done so much work keeping those super bowlers alive. We still have that Queen ability, which actually we have the Frozen Arrow and the Invisibility Vial. You can also switch this up to bring in the Giant Arrow, which could potentially help take out a couple of key buildings and start to create that funnel at the start. But the Frozen Arrow is a great option for this because it helps to freeze up those buildings in the core of the base as we make our way through. But a really dominant attack here to kick off proceedings, and a very strong one that you can use to 3-star at Town Hall 12. So let's jump over and take a look at the second attack. So moving on to the second attack here at Town Hall 12 is going to be an all-time favourite of mine, and that is Queen Charge Hybrid. Love a bit of hybrid down at these lower town halls, and it's super strong. Now the good thing about hybrid is typically you're going to start to pick it up around about Town Hall 10, and you're going to be able to use it for Town Hall 10, 11, 12, 13, and sometimes even into Town Hall 14. So it's a really strong and versatile strategy, and it's a great way to learn how to effectively queen charge for some of those strategies later on in the game. So let's jump into this one. What we're going to be doing here is we have a town hall fairly close to the outside of the base, so we're going to target it with our queen. If you've got a centralized town hall, what you're going to be looking to do with this particular strategy is use that queen charge to pick up a couple of key buildings, such as the multi-target infernos or the eagle artillery. Continuing to push on through, we're going to create the funnel here. We're going to see which way the queen goes. She goes off to the left, so we're going to use that baby dragon just to make sure we are creating that funnel to push that queen in towards this town hall. Now, of course, the Giga Bomb effect from that Town Hall 12 can be deadly for our hogs and our miners, so if you don't take it down with your queen charge, you're going to want to make sure you save your Eternal Tome ability here on your Grand Warden to protect those hogs and miners as we push on through. Now, continuing on with this attack, we will see in a second, we're going to start to create the rest of our funnel, and that is going to be done by bringing in our king over towards this right hand side and a siege barracks. Queen hopefully should loop back around into the core. We'll take a look and see if she does that in a second. But so far, so good. We did, of course, have a couple of Cocoloons. You want to make sure you're protecting that queen as she charges her way in. But if we pause up things right here, the main thing we want to make sure we're doing with hybrid is creating that funnel. Of course, our queen charge is super important because we're taking down those key buildings and structures at the top of the base, but we're also at the same time creating that funnel. King, alongside, like I said, the siege barracks, they are going to be working down towards this bottom right hand side of the base, clearing out some of these trash buildings along the outside, which allows our hogs and our miners to push into the core. Now, typically in this attack, you're going to notice we're picking up quite a lot of damage fairly early on, and that's because we're going into bombs, we're going into giant bombs, we're going into the multi-target inferno, the queen's in there as well. We're just taking all around a lot of damage. But what we want to make sure we're doing is saving our Eternal Tome for when we're taking the most amount of damage. And you were probably right, it is going to be that bottom section of the base where we see the clan castle troops coming out. We have the multi-target infernos, multiple heroes in there are defending this base. But you can see we're actually going to be able to use a rage spell that potentially we should have used on the queen if she'd been taking too much damage. But if you're able to save it and we don't need to use it on the queen, in this example just like that, we can then use it on our hogs and our miners to help them push through that really high DPS point of the base. And you'll see we've still got half of our kill squad, half of our funneling troops alive from the siege barracks and of course that king. The king again coming in with those earthquake boots. Not sure if that was really necessarily the best option for the king, because in this particular strategy, you're actually probably going to want him to walk around the outside of the base, but use whatever equipment on the king you feel is going to be most worthwhile. For me, something like the vampire stash might be really good because it's going to keep that king alive for a longer period of time as he walks around the outside. But this one, you see again how many troops we had alive there at the end. We even had swag spells. Queen Charge Hybrid really strong down here at Town Hall 12. Now, as with many of the previous Town Halls, from probably Town Hall 7 all the way up to here, dragons are so strong. Very strong indeed. Probably one of the strongest troops in the game. And they're going to continue to be very dominant here at Town Hall 12. So let's see what we're going to do in this one, which is a Blizzard Dragon attack. Now this is slightly more skillful. You're going to have to be careful with your placement, with your spell deployment, but let's take a look at how we're going to do this. First of all, what we're going to do is use a Lava Hound to tank for our blimp. Now we want that blimp to get into a section where it's going to be able to get maximum value because we have those super wizards coming out. Now what I would recommend is, if you haven't done this strategy before, run a couple of friendly challenges against yourself where you can practice the invisibility spells, because it can be a little bit difficult. We're using that Lava Hound out in front to test the water for any seeking air mines. Unfortunately we did miss one just there, but you'll see we still managed to get into the section we are looking for. Now pausing it up right there, the first spell we're going to drop is the invisibility spell. Straight after, we're going to get the rage spell down. Now we want to count 4 seconds every time. We're also going to get our clone spell in there to make sure we get maximum amount of value, get a couple more super wizards in, and what we're looking for is to be able to take down as many defenses as we possibly can. Now, unfortunately, in this particular example, we maybe don't grab as much as we were hoping for. We are able to strip out a good chunk of this base, but we don't quite get as much as I think we were maybe looking for, and that is because those troops unfortunately did walk. So try, in all the panic and all the, craziness of dropping down those invisibility spells, to keep an eye on where you think those super wizards are going to go, because if they walk outside the invisibility spell, they are of course very vulnerable. But you'll see in this particular example, we used a huge amount of our army spells to clear a decent chunk of the core of the base. We then came in with our king and our queen to clear up the remainder of those buildings. We've used a dragon up on the north section of this base just to start that funnel. And then we're going to get the rest of our troops in with that Grand Warden, again using the Rage Vial, which of course you want to try and at least have it leveled up a little bit. Eternal Tome is going to be the choice for the Grand Warden as well. King and Queen both coming in with the same equipments as previously too. Continuing on with this one, we have of course already used our blimp at the start, so we're not going to see it flying overhead to take down that town hall, but instead we're going to have our dragons pushing directly in towards it. Now, the good thing about this strategy is as long as you create that funnel, the dragons are going to rip through the base very, very fast indeed. We're saving that Eternal Tome just for the right time because we don't want those dragons to get caught by the Giga Bomb of the Town Hall. It's going to last a decent chunk of time here. Rage Vial still working wonders here from that Grand Warden. King, Queen, both with abilities. A free spell in hand as well, and this one is looking very, very strong. Now, you can do this with some other troops as well down here at Townhall 12, but I would recommend definitely using those dragons. We could potentially swap out the blimp from a super wizard blimp to a regular one to take care of the town hall. You could then create the funnel in many other ways, like a Sui with the heroes diving in. But for me, this is probably one of the most effective ways to clear out a path for the funnel, clear out some key defenses. But it does require, of course, that little bit more skill. So just be mindful, like I said at the start, if you do want to attempt to do this strategy, you're going to have to be fairly careful with your invisibility spells. You want to practice getting the timing right on the invisibilities, on the rages. If you're going to use a clone, making sure you get that timing right as well. But this strategy, if you can execute that blizzard at the start, you can see very, very strong. And it brings in another 3-star. So we have 2 strategies left. Let's jump in and take a look at the next one. Alright, so jumping into our 4th strategy here, we have Witches. Now, Witches are super, super strong from basically Town Hall 9 where you unlock them, all the way up until we get to Scatter Shots at Town Hall 13. Now, this is going to be a very simple strategy. We're going to be zapping out the Inferno Towers. You see one going on that left hand side. We're then going to use 4 lightning spells and an earthquake spell to take out that other one on the right hand side. And not only does that take out 2 of the key defenses, which of course are those multi-target infernos which can eat up those skeletons and witches, but we're also going to be creating a bit of a funnel there. Let's take a look at what we're going to do now. We're going to basically spam. This is one of the easiest strategies you can do at Town Hall 12, far easier than that Blizzard Dragon attack we saw in the previous example, or even the Queen Charge hybrid in the one before it. But all we're going to be doing here is coming in, a couple of golems, drawing a line with your finger with those witches. We're then going to bring in our King, our Queen, and our Grand Warden. We're then going to be using the log launcher as our siege of choice. We're making sure we're getting in fairly quickly just to open up those core compartments, but because we use those lightning and earthquake spells to take down the multi-target infernos, that has been able to clear enough of a funnel that the majority of our troops are going to be pushing in to the core of the base. Eternal Tome ability going to be getting popped off right there, and we are going to use our King as well with the Earthquake Boots, which is the perfect equipment to have on the King because it's going to open up every back end compartment here for us to be able to push through. Now, of course, we have already unfortunately used that Eternal Tome, so boom, we're going to see that Giga Bomb going off right there, but luckily the majority of our troops were far enough back that they didn't take too much damage. Continuing to push on through this one. Few splash damage buildings at the back end of this one, but honestly, we're completely crushing it. We still have that Queen's ability. The Rage Vial from the Grand Warden, of course, doing some wonders as well. Couple of witches still creating chaos around the outside of this base, smashing through some of those back end defenses, and this is going to be a super simple way to 3-star pretty much any base you're going to come across at Townhall 12, whether that's anti 2-star, anti 3-star, pushing bases, war bases, whatever type of base. This is a really simple way to pretty much 3-star every time. So we've got one attack left. Let's jump in and take a look at it. So the 5th and final attack is going to be some more witches, but this time it's going to be those super witches. Now, super witches are a really fun troop to use, but the only downside is they can be a little bit slow, which is why this particular attack, which brings in those bat spells, is a great way to speed the attack up and make sure we do not time fail. Kicking off proceeding very similarly to that first attack where we have that Grand Warden Walk going to be coming in. In fact, the Super Bowlers and the Super Witches, you're pretty much going to be doing exactly the same thing with it. Although in this particular example where we have those bat spells, there's a couple more things we have to identify, because bats are very vulnerable to wizard towers and to multi-target infernos. So we're going to make sure we have to be careful with them on the back end of this one. But we're kicking off with that Grand Warden Walk to help create the funnel, take out a couple of defenses, and then we're going to also be doing some funneling over on this right hand side with a baby dragon. 4 super witches, 3 regular witches. We're going to be coming in with those regular witches over here. You'll see we actually use a couple of barbarians just to tank that cannon so they didn't lock straight onto our witches. They are then going to be able to get in there with their skeletons, and we can pause things up right there. Clan Castle troops actually going to be lured over to our witches, but they can deal with that no problem. We're then going to be luring over our Grand Warden with our king, our queen, and the remainder of our super witches, because they are going to be pushing into the core of this base. They're going to sweep around, take care of this Tesla farm and the Eagle artillery on the right hand side. They're then going to make their way into this multi-target inferno. Log launcher, again, the siege machine of choice, because we're wanting to open up a lot of those compartments. And yep, you guessed it, king with the earthquake boots, because there it is right there. We're going to be able to open up all of those core compartments, and opening up a large section of the base here is absolutely what we want. So those super witches and the big boys that they produce are able to smash through the base. Townhall's going to go down to those yetis, and unfortunately here you're going to see we're actually starting to go and creep around the outside of the base, which isn't ideal, and it's not really what we're looking for, because we're going to bring in those bats. What we wanted to happen here was to continue to push in to clear out this wizard tower right here and potentially clear out this multi-target inferno on the back end. You're typically going to want to bring in those bats when you only have 2 to 3 splash buildings left. That's the wizard towers and the multi-target infernos, because of course we're going to be using our free spells on them to make sure they do not die. Now unfortunately that wizard tower did get one shot off there, but we still have a decent chunk of bats left up, which are going to be able to take down most of those defenses. Now ideally what we want from those bats is to the ability to one-shot defenses, but we already lost quite a few at the start of this, but they are still going to be able to crush through a lot of defenses on the back end of this one. Our super witches sweep back around to the core of this base. Free spell going to go in there, but unfortunately we only have like 2 bats left, but they're still going to be able to crush through the back end of this one. The witches and the super witches in combination crushing all the way to the back end of this base. Multi-target inferno not standing a chance. So you'll see in this particular example, even though our bats only took down maybe 5 or 6 buildings, it was enough that the super witches didn't take too much damage through the back end. And actually it's still a super strong attack. But what you do need to be careful with is creating that funnel. Give your initial witches just about enough time to make sure your super witches aren't going to be tempted to walk around the outside, and you're going to be seeing a lot of 3 stars just like this one. So if you did enjoy this video here on this very new channel called The Barracks, make sure you go ahead and leave a like on the video, subscribe as well for lots more content coming in the future. Make sure you stay tuned because we're going to have lots of stuff in store, including some giveaways. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.